As I suspected, I've got a lot of fault codes. These first two are a bit worrying because that's the one on the steering, stage 1 and stage 2. Some of the others are obviously going to trip because, for example, seatbelt contact, passenger. I don't have a passenger seat in anymore, so that's obviously going to trip. And then we've got belt tensioner passenger, again obviously that's going to trip, and then the side airbag on that side, that's going to trip, and then we've got the 2 head height airbags which I've taken out. So I'm getting all the codes I expected, except for I didn't think I'd get the ones from the steering wheel. So I need to chase that through. I've got a real worry that I've messed up the what do they call it, the clock spring thing, where I've been messing around with the steering column, but I'll do some checking. I'm going to chase it through and see if I can figure out what's wrong. In the meantime, before I do that, I'm going to try and knock out some of these codes by sticking a 5 ohm resistor across the sensor wires, and we'll see what happens. Well, I surprised myself, it's actually worked. So the 2 wires that I'm using are the ones for the belt tensioner gas canister on the passenger side, and I don't have any 5 ohm resistors, so I've used a couple of 10s in parallel, and that has indeed knocked out the code. So I cleared all the codes. See if I can get this to focus. Yeah, not great, is it? There it is. So you can see, although I've still got the seatbelt catch contact, I no longer have the seatbelt occupancy is still there for the passenger side, but I don't have the belt tensioner gas canister one. So that's obviously the way to do this. To get it through the MOT, I need to get all the airbag lights to go out. I don't want to cheat or anything. I'm going to make sure that the airbag on the driver's side works, but obviously I've got an awful lot of things now disconnected, so I need to somehow figure out how to stop the airbag warning with all those things disconnected, and using a 5 ohm resistor seems to be the answer. I found somewhere on the internet a screenshot of a BMW manual that said it gave 2 different ranges, but at the top end of both ranges was 5.1 ohms. So so I thought I'd go for a 5 ohm resistor. And it seems to work, so that seems okay. So I've tried knocking out the belt tensioner on the passenger side, and that worked with the 5 ohm resistor. I've done the side airbag on the left hand side, and that worked. Bearing in mind I'm in a right hand drive car here, so that worked. And now I've knocked out the head airbag on the right hand side with a resistor. So that's my setup. That leaves me the last thing to figure out, which is how do I do the occupancy switch and the latch, the belt latch. How do I do those? Which are a bit weird really, because the diagram doesn't show them as a switch. I'm using the BMW TIS database, and I'm looking at the diagrams in there, and it doesn't show it as a switch. It seems to show it as some sort of variable resistor, but I can't believe that's true. That seems crazy, because it's going to be either on or off. There's not really a partial occupancy or a partial latching of the seatbelt, so I'll have to figure that bit out. I've disconnected the plugs out the back of the steering, you know, the steering thing here, and I've stuck the 5 ohm arrangement across one of the airbag pairs, and it's the stage 1 airbag. So now you can see that the stage 1 airbag warning code has disappeared. We've just got stage 2, which is on another pair, and then the stage 1 doesn't appear in any of these. So the 5 ohms knocks that out as well. Not that I'm going to do it now, but when I fit a racing wheel and full harness, my understanding is that you don't, well, I'm not allowed to run an airbag anyway, under the regulations, so we won't be running an airbag, and apparently MOT stations will accept it as long as you have a full harness. So once I get the racing seat in and the full harness, then I don't need the airbag, but I would like to knock out the warning, so it's worth discovering this stuff, because I don't want a airbag warning light up on my dash. I just want to clear all the warnings. It would be good if you could do it in a software update, but I'm not aware that you can, so we're going to have to do it this way. So I've put the resistor across the connector off the back of the airbag unit now, and on the same stage with the grey wires. And the bad news is it hasn't knocked out the code, and so I assume from that, let's just clear it again just to make sure. Yep, still stage 1 and stage 2 bag, driver bag warnings. So I assume from that I have messed up this steering column unit, this thing here, where I've been, I think what happened was I turned the wheel too far one way, and I guess I've done some damage. So what I'm going to have to do is take the steering wheel off and take this unit off, and I believe you can get it apart and see if I can spot what's wrong with it inside, but there's definitely something wrong. So it's pretty evident what the problem is. You can see that this ribbon thing is just basically torn apart. So I'll have a look at new prices, and if they're extortionate, I'll see if I can pick one up at the breakers. That's a nuisance. I thought I was making good progress today. So I've messed around with the seat buckle detector. It's not just a switch. I started off by just putting a 1K resistor between the 2 connectors. One of them's an earth. This is an earth this side. It goes all the way over to the earth in the footwell under there. But this has got, you can see it's got 7 volts on it, or almost 7 volts. But actually, I think more importantly, it's got about 3/4 of a volt AC. I could break out my oscilloscope and check it and see what it's actually doing, but I suspect it either uses, well, it could use some sort of inductive detection, I guess, for the seatbelt. Seems quite sophisticated, but I think the thing is, I'm sure BMW wouldn't want to use things like micro switches, because they're always going to fail after a while. Whereas if you use something contactless like induction sort of detection, then that's going to be more robust and give a much longer life. Now what I have found is there are some seat belt simulators available. They're really cheap, about £8 on eBay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a couple of those and try one on the seatbelt and one on the occupancy detector, I think it's called. So that should knock those 2 out. You can actually code, well, not code them out, you can take an option so that the fact you don't have the seatbelt plugged in and you have some sort of weight on the seat. You can, I've seen a video on YouTube where you can set a code. I don't know if it's a standard sort of thing that I can do through the dashboard, but I'm sure I can do it through my my scanner thing. They used a package called Carly, which I don't have, and probably don't have a compatible dongle thing anyway. So I think we'll just go with the installing the hardware device rather than trying a software patch, and we'll see how that does. So that's the end of a rather busy day of this stuff. The good news is, you know, everything here is all back together. And the other thing is that I know how to disable all the airbag warnings with the 5 ohm resistors, and I've ordered, instead of using the two 10 ohms in parallel, I've ordered some 4.7 ohm resistors. So they should come tomorrow, so I can put those in. And that should more or less sort out the electrics for the moment. I mean, I'd like to strip out a lot more wiring, but I'm a bit loath to do that while I'm, you know, trying to get this thing into having MOT. So I'm not going to do much more on that, I don't think. I've now fitted the new clock spring affair on the steering column. So I put that in, and I've temporarily plugged the driver's airbag arrangement into the system, and the good news is I'm just left with 2 codes. Hopefully that will focus. There you go, I hope you can see that. So the 2 codes are simply the catch from the seatbelt on the passenger side and the occupancy detector, which is the 2 I expected to see. However, I still have, if you can see that there, the airbag light is still on. Now it could be because those 2 sensors are still giving a fault, and maybe that's what causes the fault to appear on the dashboard or the airbag symbol. I'm hoping to code those out, so I'm waiting for coding software and a dongle that I can run to code them out. If that doesn't work, I can buy hardware devices to simulate those 2 detectors. The seatbelt catch is a Hall effect detector, and the other one, I'm not quite sure how it works, but it's a pad inside the seat that detects the amount of depression on the seat, so assesses the weight. So so that if you put luggage or, you know, a shopping bag on your seat, it shouldn't set off that detector. Whatever the reason, I'm going to have to somehow get rid of them, because I don't want the airbag light on. The trouble is, if I can't code it, not only am I going to have to buy these simulators for the passenger side, I'm also going to have to buy them for the driver's side, because eventually I'll be replacing this seat with a racing seat. But if that's what it comes to, that's what I'll have to do. I prefer not to have to do that, but that's at least one solution. The Carly dongle thing arrived, and I downloaded the app, and I have to say I'm a bit disappointed with it. It doesn't really allow you to code much. So here's the dongle, and then there's Android software to load onto my phone. You can see the airbag light's still on, and the only option it gave me was to switch off passenger seatbelt alarm, and so I turned that off, but it's made no difference. So that's not great. So I decided to move on. I've ordered the emulator things to emulate the seat occupancy and the seatbelt buckle, and hopefully that will sort that out.